Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. I got a little glare there. Hey, this is what it used to look like when we published it. We're digital now, but boy, it used to look never looked better. Anyway, thanks for finding us on the web today. It's Thursday, and we're looking at the weekend, and I've got Hurricane Ian down wreaking havoc on the state of Florida. Some of the video I saw this morning was unbelievable. I've got in-laws down there in Cape Coral and friends that are on the West Coast. And I was texting some guys, that were in Tampa yesterday. Hey, blah, 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 if you need some place to come, we got plenty of, well, I sold my big house. I would have plenty of room then. Now I'm living in the shack while I built up on the lake. But bottom line is I got some air mattresses, got some sofas, if someone wants to come up and, we'll put you up, and it's still warm here. You could probably still camp outside. It's not getting that cold yet, So, but, oh man, I just felt so bad for the people on the western side of Florida. Now it's going through Orlando and Jacksonville. I know that place floods. And, you got Daytona Beach and St. Augustine. And then, it's my son's in Charleston. He works for Boeing. So today he's on the flight line getting all the planes flown to Texas, the ones that can fly. And the rest of them, they're going to tie him down and put him in the plant. And he's kind of like on hurricane duty. So, and when Boeing shutdowns, it's pretty serious because, they're, they've got a bunch of 787s there. But the bottom line is, they're batting down the hatches. And he just called me a little while ago. He goes, hey, Dad, the hurricane just made a little wobble. And they thought it was going to Savannah. Now it's going right at Charleston. I'm like, don't worry about it. You'll be okay. Just, you're on the fourth floor of your condo. You'll be okay. And, he's near the water, but, my wife's like, come home. I'm like, no, he's on the line, man. He's got planes to take care of. So, welcome to, working through a storm, nothing like, he's been there a year, so he hasn't really seen anything like this, but going through a hurricane, this will be like his first one where it's all on the beach coming at him. So I'm sure he'll have some good stories. But anyway, listen, anybody that's in the path, like right now it's in Orlando, it's going to hit Jacksonville, then it's going to go out to the sea, maybe strengthen a little, the water's still warm, and then it's going to turn toward the coast, Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, something in there, and it's going to make landfall. And so we just wish everybody down there, be safe. And once again, we'll pick up the straps and clean up the debris, and we'll rebuild. And what's amazing is the houses with the new building codes that they put in. Those are the homes that made it through the storm on the West Coast, like Punta Gorda. All the new homes that they were showing, very little damage, maybe a couple shingles. But if you go into the interior where some of the older homes were, where these older homes weren't built up to what the current standards are, those are the homes that got whacked. Plus the storm surge. Look, in Florida, there's no basements, all right, because of because of the water level in the water table. So the bottom line is, if the water came in, you got flooded. But a lot of the homes that got wind damage, the roofs getting taken off and all that, they were older homes. The newer homes, they actually withstood the storm. Very, very minor damage. But I saw one picture. It was a fire engine house, and the water was like halfway up these fire engines. The ambulance. I mean, the water ruins everything. You get no electric things. It's all that stuff's going to have to get replaced. So. Like I said, my thoughts and prayers are for everybody down there. All the first responders that are going out there, you're the best, because I guarantee it's supposed to be, once that storm gets out, it's going to be like 90 degrees and there's no power. Millions of people don't have power down there. So it's going to be really hot. So patience to everybody down there. I'm sure Governor DeSantis is going to get everything done, and everybody's working with down there, doesn't matter which side of the island, believe me, they're going to try to get your power on and get things back as soon as, as good as new, as soon as they can. So, just be patient and keep the faith. So with that said, today, got a really cool guest. I get guests from all over the place. The publicists reach out to me. They find me off my news. They find me, and I like having all sorts of people on here. So this gentleman reached out to me, and he's telling me, hey, he heard actually it was a legal podcast where I had the Subcontracting Institute on, and he found it very interesting. He said, hey, look, I've had both my ACLs done, and I wrote a book on overcoming trauma and dealing and keeping your mindset and all that stuff. And just over the last couple of podcasts I've done, I've talked about mindset, about getting rid of negativity and cut it loose. It's just a heavy weight. You don't need that burden, and you're on a journey, so you got to be positive. So today I have Keagen Hadley. He's from the great state of North Dakota. They used to call them the Fighting Sioux, but they were our arch rivals at the University of Denver. Now they call them the Hawks. They have a killer hockey team. Keagen, say hi out in North Dakota.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Hey, we appreciate you. And tell what's the name of your book so I don't get it wrong.
Yep, it's called Torn: Overcoming the Psychological Challenges Post-ACL Injury.
Okay, so for all of you out there, some of you have never broken a bone in your life. I've broken plenty of them, and I've had both my ACLs replaced. So I've gone through it, and surgery, rehab, and all that stuff that goes through it. So when Keagen reached out to me, I said, "Oh man, we can talk ACLs. That's great because I've gone through all of it, and I know there's a lot of other people out there that have all sorts of other surgeries. And just over the last 30 months, just mentally, all the stress that everybody's had to go through there, you just think about knee surgery, and listen, I know a lot of my buds out there. Look, I just turned 59. I've been around 25 years, all you guys out there. So I know a lot of you are out there. Some of you getting knee replacements, hip replacements. You're going to retire. You want to go for another 20, 30 years. Like myself, I'm still on the lacrosse field, and on the hockey rink. Gordie Howe played till he was 63. I told my wife, I go, look, as long as I can go up and down the lacrosse field and I get on the ice, get a couple shifts, my glory days are over. I'm going. I'm going to skate as long as and run as long as I can, in the old guys league. And because if I don't, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, one way or the other. So I might as well have fun while I do it. So anyway, ACLs, like I said, ACLs it's a very serious thing. And so when he told me he had both of his done, I haven't really met too many people that have had both knees done. So we had this in common. So that's why I had Keagen on here. And so Keagen, this is the way it's going to work. You're going to tell your story, where you grew up, what sports you played, and all that good stuff, and how you ended up where you are today. And then we'll talk about the last 30 months and, that journey that everybody had to go through, up and down the roller coaster. And then we'll finish out with a positive thought or phrase in your contact info. So with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm originally from North Idaho, actually. So
Boise, yeah.
Coeur d'Alene. It's about 8 hours north of Boise.
I was gonna say up north. Yeah.
So it's the Panhandle, so the skinny part of the state up there. That's where I grew up. That's where I played high school football. Ended up moving east, obviously, for college football and just undergrad, and then grad school. I finished my doctorate in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is where I'm currently still at. I tore my first ACL actually my junior year of college during fall camp, which was devastating for me. I was just starting to,
was this University of North Dakota?
No. I was in actually South Dakota at the time. Yep. I was in South Dakota, and I tore it during fall camp, which is just when I was kind of making my stride. I made a lot of progress over, spring ball. Just before that, I was just really starting to lead the defensive line. I was going
to say, what position are you? So you're on the line?
Yep, defensive line. And then, it happened during one-on-ones. I was doing a swim move around someone to the left, didn't even get touched, and it blew out. I took about, I'd say probably 8 weeks to rehab, and actually put a brace on it and played in 2 or 3 games that year, and then had surgery immediately following the season, rehabbed like crazy. And actually I found out the following fall camp that I was ineligible because I actually transferred from a larger school in North Dakota to a small school in South Dakota. So I had too many credits. no one told me that I had to be under 12 credits to be eligible. So I lost out on, really 2 years of full of football. So I was very
Yeah,
frustrated.
the NCAA. There you go.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So very frustrated there, but I channeled a lot of my frustration into training. I was able to run some good times at a couple free agent combines after training for quite a while, obviously. I got the attention of my agent and got signed to a very small arena football team in Nebraska. And before the season actually started, I was lucky enough to get an invite to a private workout with the Canadian Football League team in Ohio. And at that tryout, the last rep of one-on-ones, I tore my right ACL, which kind of put me out of commission, I guess. So
Yeah. It's funny is that sometimes you don't even have to get touched. People don't understand your ACL is it's like a little wispy little ligament in the middle of
mhm.
your knee. Keeps your
Inch
knee
by
from wobbling. It's a little wispy thing if you've never seen it. And
mm,
basically, when it breaks, they go in there. And listen, a lot of you guys are construction guys out there listening to this podcast. So it's basically like a little drywall construction. They go in there, they snip out the old ligament. They either take it from your hamstring or your patella. They take a piece of it. They
mhm.
take two screws and they screw that new rubber band in. And then you got to do about 8 or 9 months of just going back and forth and stretching. I mean, um, you know, I tore mine the year my son was born. So that was 99. And I did it. I was on the rink. Guy pulled me down and my skate got uh, stuck in the ice. And I remember falling back and looking at the top of the rink and I heard the pop. Everybody hears the pop. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And I made it over the bench. My leg's wobbling. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. So I played the rest of the game, went home, knee swollen up the next morning. And I was in the AAA league here in playing in the AAA league team in Atlanta. And we were undefeated. And we were going to the championship game the following weekend. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not going to the doctor. I'm just going to well, I did go to the doctor. So he told it's blown. You got to have surgery. I'm like, well, I'm playing next weekend. So I didn't even wear braces. I just went out there and wobbled around, got to carry the cup. We won and totally worth it. And then I had surgery. And, when I went to school, listen, I was a ski bum. So I saw plenty of my buds blow their knees out. And way back in the day, if you had knee surgery, they went down and you had the big long scar with the staples all the way wrong up in your groin. I mean, it was just
Everyone knew you had surgery. Yeah.
yeah, but technology now they go in with a couple of holes. They go in the microscope, boom, two screws and a new ligament, and you're done. And then a couple of days later, depending on your doctor, like the first time I went in, they had me on the machine moving my leg. Took about a week to get my staples out, and then boom, you go right into rehab. And I worked my tail off because I had my surgery in let's see, I had my surgery in April, and then I was at the top of Vail Mountain in December skiing because I wanted to come back. So I came back real quick, and man, I remember I was in that rehab place just jamming every day, and it took me a month to get on the bike to get the pedals to go all the way around. You go back and forth, back and forth. Mm-hmm. Anyway, when I made it all the way around, everybody's like, "Oh, the hockey player got it around, yeah," and and they have guys in their shoulders and this and that going. And, I'm in there sweating trying to come up, but I made it back. And the first time I fell, I took a little biff, and I was a really good skier, but you still fall. And I was like, "Oh," I had a brace on. I was like, you get up and you're like, "Oh, it's actually okay." But 8 months is kind of a very short time, to come back from ACL. Fast forward 10 years later, I was taking Taekwondo to get my black belt with my son. 2 weeks for my black belt test, I was flying down to Miami to go on a site visit. And they go, "Hey, Mr. Corsi, you want to break the board one more time? Jump side kick?" And I looked at the watch. I'm like, "Yeah, I got time. Well, put it up there." So I go up, jump over the bag, side kick, boom, break the board, came down, leg gave, another pop, saw the ceiling, and I'm like, oh, and everybody in the place was like dead silent. They come running over and like, pick me up, and I knew something was wrong. So I drive down to the airport. I call my wife. I'm like, I think I just blew my knee out. So I go down to Florida, go to the hotel. Next morning, I wake up, knees the size of a cantaloupe, and call my doctor. He goes, "Hey, come home and we'll take a look at it." So came home, drained my knee. He goes, "Look, about 2 weeks we'll do your MRI." So I went, got the MRI. I knew what everything looked like, so I took the disc home, put it in my computer, looked at it, and then sure enough, saw the wispy thing was broken. I'm like, "Oh my god, I got to do this." But I did all the rehab at the house because I already done the other leg, so I kind of knew everything. I'd go in there once a month to get measured, and the biggest thing is you'd be amazed at what 10 years of age can do to healing. Because I came back with my first ACL in 8 months. This one, I was laying with, hanging my leg off the bed, trying to get it straight. I told my wife, I'm like, I can't get this thing straight. And she's like, "You're 50. You're not 39. You know, it makes a big difference. And I don't even think still this leg is, is straight. And, but
Did you have the same type of surgery?
yeah, ACL. Well, yeah, exactly. Except I had the hamstring put in the one leg, and I had the patella put in the other. They were going to give me a cadaver. That's what they offer you. And I was like, nah, because if it doesn't take, then it gets infected, and you got to replace it all. And I didn't want to deal with that. And well, it was interesting when he went in the second time. There was some arthritis in there too, so they went in there and they cleaned it up. And but they were both completely broken. I mean, they just were. And but I did the rehab at home, and it just took me a long time. But I would say anybody that does ACL, it takes you a good year, year and a half, 2 years for your knee really where you can like lean on it, or if you're kneeling and you put some weight on it. It takes time, and especially when you get older, it just takes more time. You're not 20, you don't heal as quickly, and but I made it through, and let's see, I had that surgery, and then I got back on the mat. Let's see, about 8 or 9 months into it, I got back on the mat in the summer, and took my black belt test in September. So it was almost a year from when I had that surgery, and so I've had both kinds of ligaments put in there, and
So you healed quicker from the hamstring, then, correct?
yeah, then the patella, yeah, and
Okay.
And that leg I don't wear a brace on at all anymore. This one I do. When I'm on the lacrosse field, I wear braces on both knees for sure. I just do. But the one brace I don't worry about it. But your knee's much stronger when they put the new ligament in because it's a thicker rubber band than what was in there. And some people subconsciously they want to have that brace on there.
Yep.
But I just this knee, the one knee I think is a little stronger than the other, so I don't wear it. But I definitely, if I'm on the lacrosse field, we play on turf, I definitely wear it just to be safe. You as a lineman know, you got to wear braces. It's just you get rolled up on, or it's just one of those things. So, but God, I've seen plenty of guys blow knees out, through the ages, whether we're skiing or sports or just walking down the beach, and boom, you just don't know when it's going to go. And but if you hear the pop, it's not a good pop. You don't want to hear that.
No, it's definitely the people around you hear it too. People don't understand that, but it's like an audible pop for sure. It's not something that you just feel. It's a sound that you definitely hear. So
yeah, and the only thing I always tell people, if you go and have surgery and you are you're put out, it's basically it's outpatient, but you go into the hospital and you go into surgery. You got to take a stool softener, because if you don't, and as far as painkillers, Percocet, whatever they're going to give to you, they last maybe 1 or 2. After you take them, it's like eating popcorn. They're not good for you. Number one, they make you constipated, and if you don't take stool softener, I'm not being gross, you're going to really hurt down the road, because anesthesia just my first time I had surgery, I told my wife, I said, God, I've been eating for like 3 or 4 days. I don't go in the bathroom. Well, I mean, I did number one, but I was waiting to do number two, and nothing's happening, and it's just all building up in there, and so you got to take the stool softener or whatever's going to do to you, when you're going through any kind of surgery, because that anesthesia, that just really screws with your, your body chemistry. And I take Tylenol or some aspirin, whatever it is, you're just probably much better off. And they get hooked on those things. And like I said, they only last for a couple of days, and then you got to take more of them. In my opinion. And so
That's how they work. They kind of the more you take them, the more you're sensitive to pain. So it's kind of one of those things where, yes, it helps, but the more you take them, the more you need them. So it's important not to take them any longer than you actually have to.
I'll tell you an amazing story though. When I blew out my first knee, was it my first knee? No. First knee, I had insurance, so I saw all the bills and all that. Second one, I had melanoma back in '06, and I had a mole underneath my eye, and in '04 actually, maybe so, yeah. Anyway, they took it out and they grafted a piece of skin. 2 years later, I go back. I saw the mole came back. I went back to my dermatologist and said, "Hey, look at the mole." And they said, "Oh, we'll biopsy it. No big deal." I come. It was 4th of July weekend. Go to the weekend. I come back and he said, "Oh my God, that's melanoma. You got to get that off your face immediately." So they sent me to the Mohs surgeon. For those of you who don't know what the Mohs surgeon is, he's the guy who goes in and he takes an ice cream scooper and he just gets as much deep as he can until he scoops all the cancer cells out. So they took about the size of a small egg underneath my eye. And they called me that night and said, "Hey, I didn't get it all. You're gonna have to come back in the next morning." Talk about painful. When I go in like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning in Dr. Linsky's office, the needle's like this long. It's like, "Look, I'm gonna count to 3. I'm gonna stick it in there," And I'm like, "Okay." So he goes in. Then they finally get it out, and he said that since he took such a big chunk out of my face, that I was so close to my eyelid that I had to get a plastic surgeon. He would have done it, but he suggested I go to this guy. So this guy, I have a surgery to sew me back up, and I look like a basset hound. He like kind of pulled my face down, and he said, "Look, you gotta let your skin stretch out." And I said, "Okay." So I waited 9 months. I went back to him and said, "Look what you did to my face. I'm like all disfigured." He gave me, "I can't help you." Gave me a card, another guy. So this other guy, he pulled me up and put 2 screws on either side of my head and just evened me out. And I have a nice little scar. You can't really see it anymore, but he evened me out. And it was, so I had, that whole thing was, I think, 4 surgeries. The original one, the guy didn't take enough out, it grew back. Then I had the biopsy. Then I had to go back and get it again, and then I had to get sewn up, and then I had to get reopened up and sent again. And the last guy did it. He was awesome because I was on Delta Airlines flying, and I saw his profile in the Delta magazine as the top doctor in Atlanta. Plastic surgeon. I was like, wow, I didn't know it until I saw it until after my surgery. But anyway, I asked him when I went in there. I said, "Hey, were you using a drill?" He's like, "Yeah. How do you think I get the screws in there?" I was like, "Yeah, I heard that thing." He's like, "Wow. You really?" I really have patients tell me that stuff. I'm like, "Yeah, man, I heard the drill going." It's like, "Yeah, well, you're in construction. It's screws, and you're going to bone, and you hear that stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I heard the drill about." I was, put under, but I heard it, and so, it when you look at all those things, they're mind blowing, But I'll tell you, my doctor, my dermatologist, the first when he told me to go over for the weekend, he's my age. He's like, "Don't worry about it. Just go over the weekend." But then when I came back in, he shut the door behind me. I could see immediately like his whole demeanor had changed. And when he said, "Look, that's really bad stuff. That could kill you. We got to get that off you immediately." And you kind of everything flashes in front of you, like, "Shoot, man, I'm not even 50, and I got this gig going on. I got everything going on in my business." And afterwards, I look like Rocky Balboa in I don't care, Rocky 1, 2, 3, whatever, man. I looked like Rocky. I was beating up, my face is blowing up, and it took forever to get healed. And but you go through these things, but I kept a positive outlook at all of it. So I kind of went through it, whether it was knees or whatever. And but other people don't. They get frustrated. or they get hooked on pills, or they, whatever it might be.
Yep.
So, I mean, you lost 2 years of football, bummer,
Mhm.
but if you didn't get that, you probably, maybe you wouldn't have gotten the arena gig, right? Everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it, right?
Mhm. Yep. I would have had the arena thing for sure, but I might have been able to go to the CFL. But in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't, just because it gave me this experience where I'm able to help other people. So I mean, it's kind of one of those things that the average football career does not last long. So
No.
I feel like this is going to be more lasting and give me a lot more joy and help other people than a couple of years of football would have. So
Who was the Canadian team you were going to play for? Or,
uh, the Rough Riders.
oh yeah, cool.
Mhm.
Now, listen, right now it's the Grey Cup. It's coming up, right? I mean, football in Canada is, right now before the NFL season really gets going. So it's
Have to up there, otherwise you're not going to make it.
yeah, you're going to be playing in the snow. So it's hockey season too. It starts next week. So, well, let's. So you got your book. After you went through it, what made you want to write the book?
Yeah, so I wish I could say that was a quick enough learner to realize that this was needed. But unfortunately, after my second ACL injury, I started making poor decisions, whether that be using substances or, just bad relationship decisions. And I started dating an individual who I would find out would be a pretty severe alcoholic. And due to that situation, I endured a lot of um, emotional abuse, and kind of culminating in me being suicidal for a while. So I realized at that point, obviously, that I had to do something to get out of that. Otherwise my life wasn't going to go the way I wanted it to. So I started going to therapy. Luckily, I obviously ended that relationship, and that's actually where I got even more frustrated, because I was going to therapy. I felt like I was doing everything I needed to, but it just wasn't clicking. I'm one of those kinds of people that if you say, don't look over here, I'll look over there, and I'll probably stare over there. And the same is true with my thoughts. If I think, I've always had a kind of a perseverative negative thought that, I am broken, which was only compounded by the knee injuries and then the emotionally abusive relationship. So that thought would always be there, and it's kind of what led me down that dark path. And when I was in normal therapy, they would have you think about your favorite vacation spot, or whatever the case may be, to get your mind off of that negative thought. But when you do that, you're actually giving it more power. And it's just like anything else. If I tell you not to think about coffee, what's the first thing you're going to think about?
Coffee.
You're going to think about coffee. So I really struggled with that, and I scoured the internet, because I that's just the way I am. If I don't know something, or if I'm really struggling with something, I'll just do what I know how to do and search the internet. And I found acceptance and commitment therapy, changed my therapist. And I'm not going to say it's like a magical thing or anything, but I was able to start slowly climbing out of that hole my first session with my new therapist. So it's definitely changed my life. And then after the fact, I realized, oh, this would have been very useful as I was going through my rehabilitation for both my knees. And then I started thinking about, well, there was really no one there. There was no resources, emotionally or psychologically, to deal with these injuries. And there's very few, even large schools, that incorporate their sports psych department into their athletic department. University of Arizona being one of the very few that does that. So I just kind of snowballed that, and before you knew it, I had a book. It was probably the easiest thing I've ever done, was writing this book, because it's just essentially my experience as an athlete, starting from high school, to where I was struggling with anxiety already, through that relationship, and how acceptance and commitment therapy would have really benefited me and saved me a lot of troubles on the way. So
Yeah. One of the main things was that when I was talking about when I had my second knee surgery, uh, after I had the melanoma, my insurance carrier dropped me. So I had to get these catastrophic plans every 6 months. I had to renew them.
Mm,
And I was right in between my plan ending and my new plan starting. And there
mm,
was like about 2 or 3 days of a buffer in there. And of
yeah.
course, I blew my knee out right in between there.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I go to the hospital, I told them, look, I don't have insurance. I'm in the midst, and they're not going to cover me. And they go, well, it's going to be $25,000 to do your knee. And I said, well, my last knee cost $8,000. Because I had insurance, but basically that's what it cost. And so I did what you did. I did some research, and I found two surgeons in the U.S. that would do. One was in Oklahoma City, and one was up in Bangor, Maine, and they were both going to do it for $7,000. So I told my wife, I said, look, if the hospital's not going to work with me, I'm going to pay cash. Would you want to go to Oklahoma City or hang up in Maine? And it was, basically during it was almost the winter,
Mm,
or it was getting cold.
oh
And
yeah.
so I go, we're going to have to go out there for a week, hang out, have the surgery a couple of days. And, but I really wanted to do it locally in case something happened. I wouldn't have to fly back out there. And so I went back to the hospital and I said, look, I'm going to pay cash. How much is the anesthesiologist? How much is this? How much is that? So they went from $25,000 to $15,000 to $10,000, all the way down to seven. I got them down to seven. I said, okay, here's my American Express card. Do not send me any more bills than what's on this thing. I want it in a contract
Mhm.
because this is what's going to cost me. Okay, because I'm going to give the money to the other doctor, and I know what he costs. And I asked my surgeon. He was only making $1,800 off the freaking surgery, and the anesthesiologist, he was about, I don't know, $1,200. The rest of it was just the room rental, the surgery room at the hospital, which
Mhm.
was just outrageous.
Yep.
And I told the lady, I said, the healthcare system is just broken here. I mean, this is just insane. You went from this to this,
Mhm.
and well, all the people that come here that aren't insured, and this and that. And I said, man, it just put a really sour taste in my mouth because boy, I learned so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the reason they're able to do that is because it's not generally you paying, it's the insurance. So they're able to go, okay, us walking into this surgical room costs $1,400, and they're able to just, really skyrocket those costs because it's not actually you, this is the patient paying for it. It's the third party that,
yeah.
so you don't particularly care as much usually if you have insurance. You don't care as much because it's going to be covered to value X. So that's why they're able to do that, and it's very
Well,
frustrating.
what's amazing, when I had my ACL done, I had just had my yearly physical, so I had my EKG and all that, and I had
Mm,
just had it done. So when I was going in there, they're like, "Oh, Mr. Corson, you're over 50. You have to have an EKG before we put you down." I go, "Well, I just had it. Call my doctor." I mean, literally, I just had it done like a couple of weeks ago before I blew my knee out,
mhm.
and they said, "No, no, you're gonna have to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, how much is it?" I'm laying on the bed, how much is it? I don't know. You'll get the bill. Okay, they hooked me up the EKG. It took about 15 seconds. Take a guess how much that EKG cost.
$1,000.
$800.
Uh, yeah.
800. You were close. $800. When I got the bill, I'm like, that is just insane. You
Yep.
know. And so my primary care physician, I've been with him forever. And anyway, uh, these got my regular doctor. He's going on to this like concierge service where
Yeah.
every month I pay him a retainer, and I can go in there and I can get whatever done. And Medicare, they don't pay anything. Pennies on the dollar. It takes forever for them to get paid. And a lot of the doctors around here, they don't even take it anymore. They just do cash. They put you on these retainers. My dentist is the same thing. I pay him monthly, and a little retainer to go in there. I can get whatever done. If there's anything major, he's got a whole price sheet, tells you exactly what it is, and I get 50, 60% off whatever it might be.
Mm.
And like I broke my thumb in lacrosse. Well, here you can see it.
Oh,
This one's a little broken.
yeah.
So anyway, got slashed, scored, kept my glove on. This is in the fall, last fall, and knew it was broken, and went in, took the X-ray, was all covered. Didn't have to pay a thing when I walked out, but had the bone chip in there. He's like, I could put a cast on, but there was once again, it was playoffs the following weekend. I'm like, no, 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 no. Plus, I had to go in the goal that weekend. And I said, no, just give me a little splint, temporarily, I can take it off. And then little by little, it healed. And but you can see it's a little crooked, and but you know they have the right system, and when you look at talk about stress, about when you're thinking about going to the thing. So right now, like myself, my insurance, I go through a company that's called Christian Healthcare Ministries. All right,
Hmm.
IUCH, and they're out of Ohio. So I'm
Yeah.
driving out in Phoenix, and I didn't have coverage. I was trying to find out what I was going to do, and I hear this thing on the radio. I'm listening to AM radio, and talk. Hey, Christian Healthcare Ministry Bible. We're in a pool. Call and find out. So I call them up, fill out my application. I send it in a cover. My wife and my son. I only was paying about $300 a month, and I had
Mhm.
$1,000 deductible. And what they do is they pull everybody's money all together, and then if you have surgery, you pay your 1,000 or you pay for the surgery, and then you send all your bills into them, and in less than 30 days you get a check, and and you can pay it off. And for my monthly retainer, and they always have like a little charity thing or a donation for people that are either going through cancer or need a kidney, whatever it might be. They have a whole list. I mean, it's amazing how many people have stuff going on. Anyway, I always donate some extra money, give it to someone else. And uh, but there's no copay and all that stuff that people think, and it's just a really cool way because you pull their money, and you can go in there, and you can still go in and talk cash with the doctors and
Yeah.
stuff. And believe me, the doctors, cash is king.
Yeah.
Well, soon it'll probably be Bitcoin's king, but the bottom line is cash is your money's king. So if they get it and they don't have to deal with paperwork,
Yeah.
you know, and so
It, yeah, being on the other side is a clinician, I can tell you that I immediately switched to cash only, just because you're dictated on what you can bill, and all the different stipulations that they have. It's just not conducive to giving the patients the best experience. So it's beneficial on both sides, not only for the patient, but also for the provider as well. So
oh yeah, my stepdad, he passed back in May, and he had long-term care, he's paying insurance for all these years. Anyway, he could barely walk, and he had cancer, and uh, anyway, he had to walk like 10 feet, and because he could walk 11 feet, they weren't going to cover him or whatever.
mhm.
And when it was like the difference between like $5,000 a month in the assisted living facility wherever he was going to stay, or 14,000 because he could walk one more foot. And I was just saying to myself, this past May and June, and I was talking to my mother. I was like, this is just crazy, you know. And as you get older, you go and you look at all these things, and you burn through all this money in like a couple of months,
Yep.
and you want to do it, but you look at it and you're like, God, there's got to be a better way to do
Yep.
these things.
I
And
agree.
the first place that we put him in, it was supposed to be the best place, and he got bed sores within a week. That's a red flag. So we yanked him out, and we put him in another one, and then the bed sores went away. You know,
Yeah.
so it. I wrote one of my publishers columns on him. Like, I wouldn't want anybody to go what I've just went through over the last couple months, just learning about all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And you know, um, you know, I always say, have a good attorney, have a good doctor, and your doctor's got to have the same vision as you do on how you want to live your life. And those are real two important individuals that you want to have on your side. I don't like talking to either of them, if I don't need to,
Yeah.
because I know with the attorney the meter's running, and the doctor I don't want to hear anything bad, So, you know, it's but like me, shoot, broken fingers, this and that. He's like, oh, Dave, come on down. We'll take an X-ray. He knows me. So we'll talk about your book. So what do you talk about in there?
Yeah, so again, I go through my just overall experience as an athlete. So I've always struggled with mental health issues. I have severe anxiety. I get panic attacks, those kinds of things. So I talk about that. As I was a high schooler, I talk about my whole experience with my injuries through college, and then again that relationship that I spoke to earlier, and just how this specific kind of therapy that I provide to athletes could have prevented a lot of hardships that I had along the way. So I take my own personal stories and then add literature behind the intervention, the acceptance and commitment therapy on how it could be beneficial, and try to relate to a lot of people that are having these, and not necessarily just ACL injuries, but struggling with a long recovery of an injury
Mm-hmm.
mentally. So,
Hey, listen, we're in construction. People get hurt every day on the construction site, and
yep.
we want everybody to be safe. But
Mhm.
it's inevitable whether you get back injuries, something falls, you get cut, whatever it might be. Uh,
Mhm.
People get hurt. It's just the nature of the beast, and uh, and then you got all the liability issues, and the attorneys get involved, and it can get ugly. But the bottom line is, the guy who got hurt, if it's a severe injury, it can be very traumatic, because you just don't, you got to go through the rigmarole of everything else, and really all you want to do is get heal up, right?
Yep.
And not
Yeah.
having the stress.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how much, how important either your sport or your job really is to just your day-to-day life. It might be nice if you think about, oh, I'll get, some days off from work. I'll get a couple hard days off of practice, but then you start to really realize that you use your work as a coping mechanism in a lot of ways. So if that's removed, you're really left to your own devices as far as using substances or, making poor, relationship decisions or things of that nature. So my book just goes through the positive ways that we can deal with these difficult situations throughout our daily lives.
When people see, like, football players, they think they're the only ones that get ACLs, but there's all sorts of people who break their ACLs.
Oh yeah.
And you see them getting carted off on the car if they're a football player, and they got the towel over their head and they're all bummed out. Oh, he makes millions of dollars. Hey, that's his job. Okay. That's his
Mhm.
life. He's done his whole life. I'd be bummed out too. I'd be devastated. You know,
Yep.
I mean, I worked my tail off for 2 years, and 2 weeks before my black belt test, I blew my knee out. So I had to wait a whole nother year to go through rehab to even come back to see if I could even make it. I mean, that was the most devastating thing, that I was bummed out. I made the decision to jump over that bag when I didn't need to, and then I blew the knee out, and then I had surgery. I had to go, and I knew what the surgery, and I knew what rehab was. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and but then I had to get back on the mat, on a knee that's been rebuilt, and see if I could actually, break a board again, or twist, and
Yeah, you were extremely lucky in that sense. One of the issues, or people have a lot of misconceptions on, the big football player being carted off the field, and you might see them crying, and people kind of associate that with, oh, ACL injuries must be extremely painful. And from my experience, they're not. They don't feel
no.
really like anything. It's like tearing a imaginary rubber band you never knew you had in your leg. But it's the lost opportunities, it's the lost, it's doing the loss of opportunity to do what you love to do, or what you need to do if it's potentially a job or those kinds of things. So I just always thought that was interesting. So
The first time I tore my ACL, my wife was pregnant, so she was ecstatic. I was off the rink. I couldn't hit any golf balls. I was going to be through rehab. My son was born in July on my wife's birthday,
hmm
and I was, she knew I was out of commission for, months.
hmm
So that was great. The second time I did it, I was devastated because, I was right there. I climbed the mountain. I was so close to the summit, and then boom, I had to kind of slide down and, revamp myself. And what the worst was, like, when you get close to your black belt in our dojo, uh, uh, they put your black belt up on the wall about 2 months out, so
yeah.
you can see your name in Korean on the wall. So I was staring at my belt for 2 months, and that was
hmm
the most devastating thing. The night that I blew my knee, I was laying up, and I got up, and the first thing I saw was my belt on the wall, going, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to wait a while." Because I knew when I heard the pop, I knew it was, what I had done,
hmm
and uh, that was like the most, the worst thing. Surgery is really not, it's not that painful. You're right. It's you got your knee swollen, it's a little wobbly, and
yeah.
then you have surgery. The tough part is the rehab. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really the toughest part, because it's not, it doesn't go quick, and you can't rush it,
hmm
and it's monotonous. because you're doing the same, you're doing basically stretching stuff.
Yep.
And it's, it's, you're going to
Yeah.
say something.
Well, it just my whole outlook on the rehab profession changed when I went through ACL, because I had been, I played again football for a long time, so I was in and out of physical therapy for shoulders, fingers, ankles,
Hmm.
all kinds of things. But what became very apparent to me is not that they didn't do a good job or anything like that, but it's the fact that, especially for ACL injuries, the return to play protocol um, is sorely lacking, especially if you're trying to get back to a high level activity. And it's not their fault, but there's a lot of things, like for example, the triple hop test. You probably had to do that. That's not really conducive to someone like me returning to a game like situation where you have a 300-pound guy who may or may not dive at your knees. Just because I can hop 3 times, that there's a lot more, in my opinion, that you need to be able to do prior to returning to play. And that would give people a lot more confidence as they do return to play, because they would have already checked a bunch of boxes and been in positions that are uncomfortable. Because a lot of times you're not really, yes, there's parts that aren't fun about therapy, but there's a lot of things that you're not doing that I think you need to be doing in therapy. So
The first one I worked really hard, and when I came back, like I said, I went back on the ice. I
yeah.
got back on my skis, and but the second one, I went on the mat for 3 months. But in the beginning, I was going 3 days a week, for class, and there were
Hmm.
certain things that I just would not do.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I'm not tweaking my knee that way. I'm not going to do that. I'm passing on that stuff. And my instructor, he's a fourth degree black belt. He understood. So he was actually pretty cool with me as I gradually made my way back to where, I had to break a board and I had to twist on that knee, and
Mhm.
I was really concerned, when I at black belt testing, because it's a whole day. You get up at the crack of dawn, you take a test, written test, and all this, and then you do your, and then in the end, in the afternoon is when you do your gig, to see if you pass, and if you don't pass, you got to wait another 6 months to take it, and there's there was adults, there were young kids didn't pass, they're crying, and I was like, God, I don't want to, I got to break this board, man. I don't want to go through another 6 months, so I had that motivation, and
Mhm.
but it's definitely, people don't realize it's not the surgery, it's the rehab and all the things that you got to go through.
Mhm.
It's just it's like anything devastating, you
Yeah,
kind of
it's
have to.
learning to trust. The only way I could explain ACL surgery and what it's like um, is it feels like it's a leg transplant almost, because you have to strengthen it again. You have to trust it again, because you had this tiny little thing break inside of you that just kind of screwed up your whole world, and now you have to rebuild your entire leg in trust that everything's going to work the way it's supposed to. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, if someone was going to look for your book, where would they find it?
Yep, it's on Amazon. Again, the name is Torn: Overcoming the Psychological Challenges Post ACL Injury.
And
Yep, and I have a blog as well that I write about, different knee injuries and returning to sport after injury. And the website's called ACLtherapist.com or KeagenHadley.com, but most people can't spell that, so I go the ACLtherapist.com.
hey, so listen, everybody out there in commercial construction coffee talk, okay? If you're out there, you're a weekend warrior, like I am, but you still got to get up and work on Monday, and you're playing sports, whatever it might be, or you got hurt and you're dealing with stuff. Reach out to Keagen, send him an email, hit his blog, get his book. You might find something in there. And, all I can say is, look, if you got stuff on your mind, it's always good to talk to someone. And it's always good to talk to someone that you don't know, doesn't have, any skin in the game for you, that'll tell you like it is. And I'd rather hear it like it is than someone to have to sugarcoat it. So, and especially, I like people that have gone through, so they understand exactly what you're going through. It might be more severe or more less severe, but the bottom line is you're still going through it. So anybody that I know that has to get a knee replacement today or ACL, I'm like, hey, listen, just make sure you do the rehab, because the rehab is the most important thing. You got to stay positive, okay? Because it's a it's not a get quick rich thing. It's a it's a mindset. You got to
Mhm.
stay positive. So um, if you have one positive thought or phrase that you'd like to leave with our listeners out there in commercial construction coffee talk, what would it be? Knowing what you've gone through.
Um, I would say uh, live where you are. So nowadays, we all know that we're um, going a million miles an hour. We're trying to do 14 things off our checklist. We're on social media. We're checking the news every 4 minutes. What I would say is everyone's desperately needing human connection, and you can't get that unless you're off your phone and you're really sitting with those who are important to you and having meaningful conversations. So a lot of that has gone to the wayside for whatever reason, and I think that would really boost a lot of people's overall attitude. So.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Listen, attitude's everything. I just took a digital class a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in my fourth week. I'm in a 12-week boot camp.
Yeah.
Anyway, every Monday night I've got a 3 or 4 hour class that I take, and I learn something new every week. But their whole thing is about mindset and the
Hmm.
journey and the way that you should conduct yourself with business. And they always talk about negativity. Write a journal. Talk about just all, every week I learn something new. It's amazing. But the whole thing is about mindset. And it's like kind of like going to church on Monday night. I don't know. I mean, I just every time I get out of the class, they do it West Coast time, so I'm in there 6 to 10 at night, and I go
Hmm.
down, and I'll see my wife. I'm like, damn, that was really great class, man. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself and just stuff, And there's about 10 other people that are on the Zoom call with me, and they're all from all walks of life, and
Hmm.
and and they're learning right along with me. And but their whole thing is mindset,
Hmm.
and I can't preach enough about it. Mindset is like it can take you. Listen, if you don't have the mindset, you're not going to get a lot of things done. You got to be positive, because there's a lot of road bumps. Construction. Hey, labor shortage, products aren't going to supply on time. Interest rates are going up. The
Weather.
project's been put on hold. I can go down the list. The concrete, didn't have the right moisture. Now they got to, you're not going to get the store open on time. Right now everybody's stressed because if you're a retailer, you got to get all these stores built by Thanksgiving, because then they're going to make all their money between Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Hmm.
and they don't even know if they're going to have the products on the shelves. So, but that's right now it's a very stressful time in the retailers, because everybody's trying to get stuff done. So, but if you have a positive mindset, you're going to cross that finish line at the end of the year. I always felt like on LinkedIn, I always feel, hey, finish 22 strong and with momentum. I'm thinking, whatever it might be. So I'm always kind of trying to throw things out there. And anyway, mindset is, I'm right there with you, as far as, your lesson. So everybody out there, it's almost the end of September. Fall's here. Leaves are turn. It's a beautiful time to be outside. You got Halloween coming up, Thanksgiving right after. Then boom, you're going to be in the holidays, and Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, everything else, and then New Year's, and boom, this year's over. So, you know, and then 2023. And then obviously you got the midterms in there, and who knows what's going to happen there. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, Keagen, it's a pleasure to meet a dual ACLer. I mean, listen, he reached out to me. He told me about his ACL. That's why I had him on the show. And guess what? It's all about ACL surgery. Is just like construction. It's like doing drywall. So that's the way I kind of bridged it on. That's why he's on here. Plus, he's an athlete, and he went through exactly what I went through. And so that's why I had him on here. And I urge you. I'm going to go on. I'm going to get the book. I'm going to read it. So I'm going to go on. I'm going to buy it. And like I said, if you've got something on your head, or you're going through some rehab, whether it's shoulder, wrist, whatever, and you got some questions, and shoot him an email. Go on his blog, or and I'm sure he'd like to have a conversation with you. So if anyone wants to reach me, I'm at David C at ccr-mag.com. Hey, we had another 2.5 million people hit the website. I think I'm going to go over 2.6 this month. I'll know this Sunday. And you got something cool, charity golf tournament, personnel announcements, new job, whatever, case study, send it to me. We'll find a spot for it. We look at everything, and it's a win-win because I'll post it. I'll give you the link, and you can share it on your social media, and like I say, I know you don't like hearing it, but it's like the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't find a place to put it on there. So, send it to me. We'll look at it. So with that said, Keagen, stay warm there in North Dakota because I know it's getting a little nippy. And with that said, say goodbye from Bismarck, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, we appreciate your time, and we're going to get your book. And I'm going to say goodbye. This is David Corson once again. I'm going to say goodbye from Lake Lanier, Sugar Hill, right below the Beaufort Dam, about 30 miles north of Atlanta. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Keagen, I look forward to meeting you in person, and we can look at each other's scars and our little holes. You know what I mean? It's you know how it is. Hey, yeah, let me see. So anyway, everybody have a great weekend coming up. Enjoy yourself, recharge your battery. And like I said, we'll see you next time on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Keagen, we'll talk to you, all right?
Talk soon.
All right, man.